why do people want to start a team? And like, what's the biggest misconception around starting a retail traditional team?
My business partner Pete and I, we talk about this all the time, right? Being a team leader looks pretty. It really does. It looks glamorous. It looks like the job that everyone wants to do, like golfing all the time, speaking in front of the big room, making all this money. And it looks like where you want to be, right? Like that's the next trajectory of your career. The sad part is I could probably make twice the money selling real estate myself than running a massive real estate team. And no one really knows that. Like, and we're pretty transparent about it. Like we tell people, guys, like we don't make as much money as you think I make. Like at the end of the day, because that same profit margin runs true for most teams. It's usually a 15 to 25% margin, right? Like if you think about it, most teams aren't taking massive splits, right? So we're getting pinched there, and on top of it, we're paying salaries and staff and expenses and paying for everything and anything possible. And so we get squeezed so much, and it becomes a volume play in order to make sense and profit on the real estate team. So I think it's a very glamorous job, and people want to do it. Like it's going to be so much fun not selling real estate and teaching it instead, and it becomes its own hurdle. So I think the biggest misconception you see is people start a real estate team because they're really good at real estate, not necessarily that they're very good at running a business. And I think that it's in a completely different ballpark of running something. And Pete and I, we talk about it all the time. Agents starting teams because they're good at being an agent, not running a business. And there's such a distinct difference. Luckily, Pete and I were better at running a business even than we were starting a real estate team. So being an agent. And so we knew, I would say, the fundamentals of expanding on your marketing and running a lead gen platform and actually processes, systems, being a manager of people. Like all of those things become important when you start a team, and they're not important when you're running your real estate team because your only employee is yourself,
Sure.
right? Like you're your own CEO. And so when you actually start a real estate company and an actual team or a brand or whatever, you actually have people you need to manage. You have people you need to keep accountable beyond just yourself. Now you have to truly delegate and rely that someone can do it good enough to keep the business going, versus when you're your agent and you're the only person doing this thing, it's like you're doing everything. Mm-hmm. So you know it's going to get done to the level that you want it to be, right? So I think too many people start a real estate team because they're good at real estate and not actually because they're good at running a business, and they don't really know everything that's in store for them as they're getting into it, until they're too deep into it and they're like, oh no, what did I do? Mm-hmm. Like, can I take a step back? Can I go back and sell real estate? So
and a lot of times it's hard to go back.
Oh, it's pride too. Yeah. Like you got to swallow pride and say, you know what? This wasn't a good fit for me. I'm better at just being an agent. I'm better at being a piece of something bigger versus trying to run the show.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah. You said one time, I think I remember you saying that, and I don't remember exactly how you said it, but you said basically that a team, okay, is at like, let's just say like 5 agents, it is profitable, and then at like 80 agents, it's profitable. And you were, and I can't remember the context of the conversation, but you were talking about how this like middle ground in a lot of scenarios is not profitable
at all.
Like you go from like small and profitable to not profitable to profitable again if you ever get there.
Yeah.
Because getting to 80, right? Like getting to where you're at, a lot of people never get there.
Yeah.
So they get stuck in the middle ground, which is like 20 agents, right? Or 30 agents, which typically isn't profitable. So like, what would you say to that person, right? Like what they're at 5. Like, do they stay at 5? At 3 agents, they're at 3 agents. They're slammed. Everybody's busy. They're making money, right? Because I think you can make money running a small team.
100%.
Because there's enough happening, right? And you've got maybe a really good buyer's agent. You've got a really good listing agent. You've got a bunch of lead gen coming in maybe. Like, should they just stay there?
Quite possibly. There's a key swing there that like you don't touch on, right? Is when you transition with agent count, your business transitions. So when you run a small team, you're still selling real estate. Like you can't, the team actually is not profitable with 5 agents. It's not. The reason it's profitable is you're still doing 2 to 5 transactions a month. It looks profitable. So you see those smaller teams and you're like, man, they're like doing some sales. They're driving nice cars. They go and invest, right? Because they're like, we're killing it. We're making all this money, which in reality, they're making a small split from a few agents. And then they're still doing 3 to 5 deals, right?
A month.
A month.
Yep.
Because they have to pay the bills. In all reality, when Pete and I first started, we were underwater. Like, if we didn't sell deals ourselves, we never would have been able to have the team. Like, we couldn't. So we were actually doing real estate transactions to pay for them, the other agents on our team, to sell their deals, right? So, like, we were paying for them to have opportunity, which is crazy to think. So it's really a definitive moment in deciding what type of real estate team you want to run. Because there's really 2 distinctive ones, right? You got the Rainmaker model, which is that small team that you described. And then you have more of that enterprise model, which is what Pete and I run, which is we're fully removed. Like, we're not in it on a daily basis. Like, we could go away for a month and it would still grow. It would still build. And that's the definitive moment of, is your team or business viable? Is it actually functioning right? It's like, can you leave for 3 months, come back, and it's better than it was before? Not just maintain. Like, can you leave and it grew? Like, are you getting more profit now 90 days later than you were when you were there? And if the answer is no, then you really don't have a viable business yet. Like, you can't sell that. Like, you can't grow that. So the problem with the Rainmaker model, if you dip out for 90 days,
it's over.
It's gone.
Yeah.
Like, you can't. And all of those agents are relying on your leads and your actual real estate business. So that Rainmaker model is tough, because I truly think that's the most profitable margin and model in all of real estate. The small team Rainmaker model will make you the most, because you're still doing 3 to 5, so you're racking it in, and you have a few agents helping supplement, and your staff and your expenses are small.
Yep.
Like,
Agreed.
Perfect model, but you will never exit.
Right. You will never exit, and
Never exit.
you'll get tricked, right? Like, the world tricks you into thinking, let's scale.
Oh yeah,
Like-
let's scale
like-
with this.
Yeah, like we're on to something here. Like,
Yeah.
let's go to 10. Let's go to 20,
Yeah,
right?
Like, yeah.
And then the next thing you know, you're in a predicament.
Yeah, because now you're paying for staff.
Right.
And what are you doing with your
And
time?
you've got an office, and you've got
Yeah.
lead generation. And
So
you've
now you're
got-
paying for expenses. Your deals are going towards expenses, not your pocket like they were with 5, right? And so the other piece of that animal, if you will, is when you're scaling out and you're growing, you're shifting your time from doing real estate sales to helping grow agents, teaching them, training them, recruiting them, maintaining those relationships and so forth, and you're scaling out. And so if you give up half your time that you used to do selling real estate, making you tangible money immediately for a fourth of the commission checks, right? Because you're not making the 100% anymore. You're making a fourth of it on average. How much you need to do 4 transactions on your team to offset one of your deals that would have took a fourth of your time. So it's like an 8-degree swing, if you will. And you're thinking this makes perfect logical sense, but then you catch yourself in that 20 agent count bubble, and you're only doing 1 to 2 deals a month, and now your expenses are 4 times higher. And now you're also looking at your team like, if they don't do deals, you don't survive.
Right.
And a lot of those teams are in that spot right now in
right now.
2023 because they've just went through the 3 best years we've seen in real estate for a team in decades, right? Like, it's never been better than it has. It's weird. COVID happens and our real estate
market
goes insane.
Wild, yeah.
And it's better than it's ever been. And so you're in this mode of like, oh, we just scaled, but what people don't understand is that you were successful despite yourself. Like, that's such a true concept as a team leader, is when you're successful despite your shortcomings. And so it blinds you to actually see what your issues are in your business. So when everybody's making money, no one notices the issues and the holes in your ship.
Sure.
No one notices it. When you're going through a recession and the market's changing, everybody notices the holes in your ship. Trust me, you're sinking, right? And so it's too late to fix all those holes when your ship's already halfway underwater. Like, it's crazy, but it's true. And so I think that's where a lot of teams are at right now. They've had 6 months of like, oh no, what is this? We haven't faced this yet. Whereas like teams like ours, like Pete and I, we've been preparing for the recession for 5 years. Like, we're like, okay, what's going to happen? How are we going to do that? And so now we're growing through it. We're adding businesses. We're taking advantage of a difference in the market where a lot of teams are going to be just trying to figure out a way to survive.
Yep.
And figure out, they'll go back to selling real estate. Their teams are going to split in half and a fourth, and they're going to be looking for different options.
Agreed. Yeah. And you can't be in survival mode and like have an abundance mindset at the same time because you're just focused on surviving, right?